These are direct reading dial calipers. One is inch, one is metric. I just want to do a quick video on the usefulness of a tool like this and how to read them. The first thing is that both of these are mechanical measuring tools. There are also digital vernier calipers available. The reason I really prefer the mechanical tool, two reasons. One is that the digital vernier caliper is powered, of course, by a battery. The disadvantage of that is a lot of times a caliper like this spends most of its time sitting in the toolbox. When you go to use it, you need it. You don't want to see a blinking display or no display at all, which means the battery is dead. So a tool like this, there's no battery, nothing to ever go dead. That's number one. Second, the digital ones also have a 0 button on them. Usually it's an orange button. The problem with the 0 button is that you can zero it at any jaw opening. And what I mean by that is, let's say if the caliper is open just a little bit, like this, if this was a digital tool, if I pushed that orange button, usually orange, the 0 button, that now becomes my new 0. So anything as we open the jaws, obviously the measurement gets bigger, then the measurement gets smaller. It would get to your 0, and then you'd continue to close it, and now you're in a negative number. If that happens and you don't realize it, and that could happen maybe if you laid something on your bench on top of that caliper and it hit the 0 button, now you have a new 0, then it could really screw up your measurements, and that's bad. In fact, I know a guy who owns a machine shop, and he says he won't allow digital tools in his shop. And it was just exactly for that reason. One, batteries go dead. Two, the 0 button. If you're only going to have one precision measurement tool, a direct reading dial caliper like this should be your tool of choice. It's a very versatile piece of equipment. You can easily do accurate outside measurements. You can do inside measurements. And you can do depth measurements all with the same tool to within 1/1000th of an inch or 100th of a millimeter, depending on the type of tool you get. This is a 6-inch dial caliper. So this caliper can read from 0 inches to 6 inches in 1/1000th of an inch increments. If we look at the scale first, the scale's broken up into inch sections. This one is 1 inch, and then you'd have 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then between each inch measurement, you would have tenths of an inch. So this would be a tenth, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, etc. Then on the dial, we read thousandths of an inch. So we would read then from 0 all the way around the dial, back to 0, each one in 1/1000th of an inch increments. So this 10 would be 10/1000ths of an inch, 20/1000ths of an inch, 30, 40, etc. So the way we would read this, right now with that jaw opening, the first thing we see is that the full 1 is showing. That's 1 inch. So we would write that as 1 point. And then this caliper reads to 3 decimal places. And so from there, we're going to then look at the rest of the numbers on the scale. Again, that would be a 1/10 of an inch, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10. The 5 is showing. So the first digit to the right of the decimal would be a 5. And then from there, we have to look at thousandths. So we would look to the dial. So that would be 10/1000ths, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. And now we count the individual lines, and it looks like we have 7 more lines. So that's 67. So this caliper right now is reading 1 inch, 567 thousandths of an inch. Here's something that can be just a little bit tricky with reading a caliper like this. Right now, our jaws are open to we see the full 1 inch is showing. Then we look at the numbers on the scale, and we see a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and what looks like a 6 is showing. The thing is, the full line of the 6 actually isn't completely showing. The way we know that is we have to look at the dial. So if you look at this dial, you count up the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but if you notice the needle is to the left of 0. So that means we haven't passed that 0 mark yet. The 6 is really not showing. So what this caliper is reading is 1 inch, 500. Now we switch to the dial. We go 10, 20, 30, 40, etc. to 90, and then 6 more. So this is actually reading 1 inch, 596 thousandths. Even though it appears the 6 is showing, it's not yet. It still has to go another 4 thousandths of an inch before we get to that 0 mark. So it's not a 6. I've opened the jaws just a little bit. And so what we have now is we still, of course, have our major 1 inch is showing. So there's 1 inch, and then our tenths of an inch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. But to know for sure that that 6 actually is showing, we look at the needle on the dial. Notice the needle is now to the right of the 0. If it's to the right of the 0, and we can barely see that 6, the 6 truly is showing. So this would now be reading 1 inch, 600, and now we count up the lines to the right of the 0, and I see 1, 2, 3 lines. That's what our needle's on. That's 3 thousandths of an inch, and so you'd add a 0, 3. So this caliper is now reading 1 inch, 603 thousandths. There's a subtle difference between that needle being just to the right of the 0 or just to the left of the 0, which is going to determine that first digit past the decimal. I hope this has been useful for you. Thanks for watching.